Since 1983, China has effectively undergone an industrial revolution and now is the largest manufacturing base in the world. And we all know that. However, this industrial revolution has come at a cost to the environment and a cost to the social lives in China. And like us, we had our industrial revolution at the end of the 1800s, and that came at a massive price to us for our environment and our citizens. Now in China, it's been calculated that the cost of the environmental impact that their industrial growth has had on the economy is about $112 billion per year. That was an MIT study looking at 2005. That's a huge amount, and that cost has come in lost work days, ill health, bad environment, polluted rivers, all the other sorts of things that they've experienced. Now, in January 2013, you probably read in the press, there was a big air pollution problem in Beijing. It was the worst in their history, and it was caused by coal-fired power stations, industrial stacks, and cars. And those who have been to Beijing recently will understand that it's really a car park with lots of emissions being polluted because the traffic has got absolutely horrendous in Beijing. Now, I think it was 1952, there was a great smog in London that killed up to 4,000 people. And it was perceived as the worst catastrophe in London in modern history, outside war. And in 1952, this smog caused a change in the way that the UK looked at its environment and its industrial pollution. And they came in lots of new clean air legislation that slowly improved the environment since 1952. And we're in London now, sunny day, clear skies. Industry's moved away, Clean Air Act's come in, coal's been controlled, and clean smoke and the likes. Now, the word we're getting is that this event in Beijing in January this year has been also the same sort of impact. It's the final straw for, I think, Beijing and China in cleaning up its industrial act. And there's real momentum now in China, and we're getting a lot of interest from the Chinese in our embassy in Beijing about how the UK can support China changing its industrial revolution, changing its approach to industry. But it's not just about pollution. China is now the world's second largest energy consumer, growing at a rate of 5.6% annually. And 70% of that energy in China is used by industry. There's also little oil reserves in China. And it's very much dependent on oil input. And with the growth of their automotive industry, it's now the number one automotive industry in the world. Now, the demand for oil is absolutely huge, and the nation is really concerned about energy security. It's very much a coal-driven economy, but they've seen coal prices rise considerably in China. And there's concern that power outages and energy problems in China will continue for the long-term future. And also, the public awareness now of the impact of their industry on their environment is growing and growing. Water pollution is a big problem. And as it said, there's a survey done in the Puru Delta area where 43% of the residents thought that actually water pollution was the number one issue. There's a lot of water in that area, of course. So China's getting all these drivers, not just from air pollution, but energy security, pollution of the rivers, water shortages. If you look at the problem 2 years ago in China, in the southern China, massive water shortages, shipping in bottled water into huge residential districts. And this problem, I think, has come to a head in China. They've already started a while back on the road of changing their industry from this low-cost, heavy industry to more technology industry. But the momentum now has got exceptionally high. So in the latest 5-year plan, China's put some really hard, real targets in order to improve their industrial landscape. Energy consumption as per unit GDP is going to be reduced by 16% in 5 years to 2015. That's a massive reduction in energy intensity. The carbon dioxide emissions reduced by 17%. But even more so, it's not just about reducing carbon dioxide in order to hit Kyoto protocols or whatever. It's about the fact that their cities are full of smog. and their people no longer want to live in these conditions. Reliance on fossil fuels, the 11.4%. There's been a great thing called the Rural Electrification Program, which created the largest PV company in the world, photovoltaic company in the world, as a result of that. And there's also a great demand to improve water sustainability and the water environment. But fundamentally also, China wants to change the way in which it looks at its industry. It's very much a resource-driven industry. They want to turn it into a knowledge-based industry. They want to go up the value chain, stop making toys and start making high-tech stuff. And for that, they're plowing millions and billions of dollars into R&D and developing a knowledge-based economy. So what's this mean? Well, the Chinese are bringing in harsher and harsher legislation on improving the environment and on improving the way their industry works in the environment. They've already got the low energy law, which looks at the energy intensities of industry. They've brought in clean production laws about making their factories operate in a clean way. And there's legislation about automobiles, about energy efficiency of automobiles, and right across the patch there's legislation coming in as part of this 12-year plan and the previous 12-year plan. Actually, a lot of this was instigated. And this legislation is making Chinese industry change. So, what's the opportunity for the UK? There's big change in China, big legislation, they're cleaning up their act. The UK has, for many, many years, has these laws in place. And our factories know about environmental sustainability, we know about pollution, we know about emissions. We're just starting to get into the idea of energy efficiency. The new energy bill that's just come out has a whole bit on energy efficiency, bearing in mind that industry in Europe uses a third of the energy that is consumed in Europe. So that's now coming into our remit. And because of that, we've gained expertise. We've actually gained a supply chain and people like you who sell your products on their functionality, their efficiency and their way they work to protect the environment. We've used this as a USP. We've got capability. We're unaware, I think, a lot of us, about the opportunities that this actually creates from an export point of view. And that's what I hope to introduce you to in this talk. So we have this capability. And here's some of the markets that we can target in China. Just look at these numbers. Right, the State Council has set out a new plan to aim to expand China's energy-saving industries. That's all those people who provide low-voltage power supplies, heat-efficient burners, high-vac systems, energy-efficient process plants in plastics. They want their industry to look at that. And they want it to be 450 billion of GDP by 2015. 450 billion. The Premier announced that he's going to put this energy efficiency funding in place, and the State Council will invest £237 billion, right, in measures to cut pollution and to enhance energy efficiency by 2015. That's not many years away. 98 billion has been put into a number of projects, and the rest has been spread over many projects throughout China. Those are numbers issued by China. We're tracking where that money is, and we're tracking where those budgets are to see what UK companies get. That is a huge market opportunity. If the UK just got one fraction of that, 5-10%, it would increase our exports dramatically, I think. So that's the size of the market. But what I want to talk about is the National Development and Reform Council, known as the NDRC, and their 100 Enterprise Energy Conservation and Low Carbon Programme, which is embedded in Chinese law as part of the 5-year plan. Because this is where we've got some real information and some real opportunities. Right. Now this programme is all focused on getting 100,000 organisations to reduce their energy intensity. There happens to be 16,383 organisations on their list, so it's a bit bigger than 10,000, and it covers hotels, restaurants, commercial enterprises and schools. But as you can see for that, the majority on this list, and there is a list, is 14,641 are industrial organisations. And their target by 2015 is to save over 251 million tonnes of coal equivalent energy. A massive challenge. Now the list has been developed by the provinces looking at all their industries, benchmarking where they are in terms of their energy intensity, and then feeding it into the NDRC, which I mentioned before, who are holding the national list. And the NDRC have the overall responsibility of this. And now this is important to understand that the NDRC are a state-level organisation of the highest order, up with MMIT and various other organisations. So this is a Chinese state-driven initiative. I've worked out roughly that the potential opportunity, just looking at these 14,000 industrial organisations, for sales of equipment, services and products into those industries to help them save energy is worth more than $10 billion. Quite a big market. Now the good thing about this is I got all this information from the Chinese embassy in here, and they've given me a list, the whole list of all these organisations with their registration number and the name of the company. And we're using that list, right, to target UK companies for opportunities. So we've got the market, guys. So just a little breakdown of the list. I won't dwell on this. The list covers lots of different provinces and number of enterprises. And this is sort of like the top 8 provinces with the number of enterprises in those provinces that are on the energy saving target list. Now, as you can see, there's a number of industries in these areas. So these enterprises cover many, many different sectors, of everything from electronics manufacture to power generation to cement manufacture to coal to mining to automotive, etc. And what we're trying to do as the UKTI is break down those companies, target the areas and focus the UK companies on winning business from those organisations. The other thing you have to understand is these organisations have been given money to buy equipment and services to help save their energy efficiency. They're being supported by the Chinese central bank in order to do that, and they're being encouraged to take loans. There's very many schemes going on about how they can get money to support it. So not only do we have the list, we also know they have the money to spend to do it. Okay? And what we're doing, like the mission, is focusing on, which I'll talk about later, is focusing on different areas, so we target on provinces. The other thing that's going on in parallel to this is there's a big low carbon project going on in China. So this is the energy saving one I've talked about, and I'll go into more detail of that. And that's focusing on 5 provinces and 8 cities. And these cities, Chongqing is a big one, Guangzhou province, Shenzhen, around Beijing, pardon my pronunciation, Boding and Tianjin, various places like that have got the targets. So we've got this overlapping of a carbon sort of saving program going on, and also this big one on energy efficiency. So I want to go into a little detail about this program because I think it's worth knowing. This document here, right, that I showed you before, is an overview of the overall program, and it's worth reading. As I said, the NDRC has overall responsibility, but they've set up in each of the provinces a regional energy conservation authorities, right? And these are to help the SOEs. SOE stands for state-owned enterprise, right? Hit their energy saving targets. So the local government is absolutely key to engage. And what we've decided to do at the UKTI is choose 3 provinces, or 2 mainly at the moment, we're looking at the third, which is the Wuhan province, to focus our energy and activity on so that we can make impact and get you guys sales in that market very, very quickly. The local government, the provincial government, have actually been authorised from the NDRC and State Council to audit the SOEs and the companies to make sure that they have plans in place to hit the energy savings targets and to make sure that they do that. So it's not a case of, like in the UK, where we volunteer to be part of a programme. It is in law that these companies have to hit these targets. They have the money, they need the technology to do it. Right. Now, there's measures to achieve practical results, which is written in this document, rewards and punishment mechanisms. Now, the rewards go into individual level in these companies. So what they're saying is that Chinese companies, you have to set up a committee in your company to look at energy efficiency. Your employees will all look at how they've contributed to it, be part of their review process, and you'll give rewards, etc. if you do that. If you don't do that, there will also be some punishments. And I just want to read this little bit out of this document, which I'm sure you'll pick up. Sorry, get the right page. Which says, if any of the 10,000 enterprises do not meet their annual energy conservation targets, they will be subject to compulsory energy audits by the local energy conservation authority. They will be given a deadline for taking corrective action, and their failure to meet targets will be made public through the media. Very Chinese, this. Yeah. Financial institutions will be required to restrict their credit ratings in the operational performance assessment downgrade. The remuneration of leaders of these state-owned enterprises will be similarly affected. So what you've got in China is you've got a whole campaign going on which personally affects the people who are running these companies if they don't achieve the targets. And this is very, very high motivation. For you who knows China and do the market, you'll see that there's great pull in China in order to bring in the technologies to solve this problem. So what are the requirements? Well, I want to bring this out because it actually talks about what we can offer them. So we've got strengthened leadership and energy conservation groups. So I've talked about these companies needing to set up expertise in their company. If you're a company that is good at energy audits, understanding energy processes, good at training, good at getting into the market and helping companies set up their organisation, a bit like the Jaguar Land Rover Environmental Innovation Programme, there's immediate contractual work for you there to go into these organisations and help them set up what they need to do. Enhance the responsibility mechanism for objectives. Well, actually, the Chinese have come up with a number of guidelines for this. There's a thing called the Energy Management Systems Requirement, GB/T23331, that needs to be applied inside their organisations. So you've got a whole process where you've got a need to change the culture inside organisations. And if you're an expert in that area, you can get out into China and you can sell your services. Establish energy management systems. The general principles for equipping and management of energy measurement devices in energy-using organisations, GB17167. The Chinese have written a procedure on this. If you know about energy management, if you have equipment that helps people do energy management, if you can work out how they can set up an IT system that can do online measurement of their energy usage across a factory, there is business for you in China. Improve energy measurement statistics, same sort of thing, analysis. Carry out energy audits and draw up conservation plans. There are a lot of UK companies out there that actually have the ability to do energy audits. There's immediate business opportunities for you in China. Intensify technology innovation and energy conservation. Accelerate the phasing out of outdated energy using equipment and processes. Now this is a particularly interesting area. What the Chinese have done is they've created a national key energy savings technology promotion directory, of which on that memory stick is an overview of all the technologies they want. And this is an area where they're looking for new technologies. I'm going to go in a little bit detail on the next slide on that, because this is an opportunity for us. Start compliance and benchmarking, set up robust energy conservation initiatives and restrictions, and develop energy conservation training and awareness. That's not just within the factories, that's within the public in general. So I've just picked out some of the opportunities if you're providing services, if you've got capability, if you've got equipment ability to order, where immediately you'll have opportunities. I want to talk a little bit more about the technologies. So this document, right, which you've got the introduction to on the memory stick, and it does talk about things like voltage matching. It does talk about things like burners. I think the second page in there's a whole thing about burner technology. And what they've done is they've produced this document and they've given it to the 10,000 industries and said, well, 14,000, said, look, here's like here's a catalogue you can use to implement new technologies that will help you save energy in your industry, and it covers everything from oil and gas right down to textiles and the likes. A lot of these technologies don't exist, and I've got the total full detailed documents about this thick describing all the different technologies. What I'm trying to do is get UK companies and their technologies on that document. They've also turned around and said to companies, they've said, Chinese companies, if you've got old, outdated equipment that doesn't meet the targets of energy saving, you've got to replace it, you've got to get rid of it, and you've got to put new processes in place. So if you're a process provider, maybe in the plastics industry, the food industry, the ceramics industry, that has equipment that saves energy, saves the environment, recycles waste. There's an immediate opportunity for you. I've written down here, what they've got in this little heading I've given: scope and technology, energy saving, and all the other bits and pieces. The interesting one that I like is target implementation, where it says we have coal-powered fire stations and there's this bit of technology. By 2017, we're going to implement it in 80% of our coal-powered fire stations. It's all the data's there. If you want a copy of this full document, I have it, but it's in Chinese. So, and as long as I can see you're going to use it for the right purpose, because it's not just for putting on the internet, then I'm more than happy to let you have a look at it and have copies of it. So let's look at a regional example. Guangdong. Now, we've been working with Guangdong for about 2 years. And what Guangdong province has done is they've turned around and said, we want to be a technology-led economy. They said to their polluting companies, you've got to form clusters. So you've got to move your factories from cities and residential areas, form clusters, and we will build industrial parks around you that can treat the water, help you with emissions, help you with your energy saving, etc. If you don't introduce the environmental changes that we want you to introduce, you're out of here. We'll close you down. And a lot of companies, particularly in the ceramics area and the electronics area, have actually moved out of Guangdong province, or planning to, primarily because they don't want to face up to the environmental legislation that Guangdong government are putting in place. However, so are all the other provincial governments, because the state have told them to. They're not just focused on energy intensity, they're also focused on water pollution, big thing for them, and how they can make sure that water supplies exist and that the water is not polluted. So there's big clean-up of the waterways. And also domestic waste management, which is part of the overall solution. They're looking at sustainable manufacturing as a total package in Guangdong. They're looking at the whole process, from products and how they make the products, all the way through to the manufacturing process, to the disposable, to the relining, recycling that goes in a total industrial sustainability context. So they're looking more broader. They've got a number of initiatives to fund and finance companies wishing to put in place energy efficient technology, whether it's kilns, Paul, or whether it's HIVAC, or whether it's whatever it is. They've got funds to support that. And what they've done is they set up a number of state-owned organisations or pseudo-government organisations to support this process. A number of them are going in and giving the training and the support that I've mentioned. Some of them are actually setting up capability themselves to build technology that's energy efficient. And others, like Fortune Oriental Environmental Resource Company, is actually there to oversee and manage the whole process. I just want to talk a little bit about Fortune Oriental. It's a huge state-owned organisation in many sectors, and they've created a subsidiary called the Environmental and Resource Organisation that's working very closely with the Guangdong government to help bring in lots and lots of new technologies, lots of partnerships, and lots of training and support to help the Guangdong industry meet its energy saving targets and its environmental targets and meet the legislation. So Guangdong's one example. I think it's one of the leading ones, hence we're focusing on it, and others are now following in rapid succession. What we've been doing at the UKTI is building relationships at provincial government level on this, and also with the likes of Fortune Oriental, in order to make sure that UK companies have a channel in which they can sell their products and services at a high rate, and get those contacts and networks in place very quickly. Something's come up there. Let me just go on that. Now, staggeringly, bearing in mind that Guangdong province has an economy bigger than most countries, they're going to put 3% of GDP into environmental protection, industrial sustainability and energy saving by 2015. Okay, so there's the market. Astounding, yeah? UK have the capability to get this market. What we've got to do is we've got to form our collective, and we've got to move forward and present our wares to the Chinese. Big, big pull. Lots of drive. Lots of pull from individual people working in state-owned organisations. So what have we done? Well, we started all this off in December 2010, and we held a conference in IMechE about industrial sustainability and its potential for export. Because we recognised that the UK is very good at this, and we wanted to see if there was an opportunity to bring it together. That was okay supported, a lot of academics, not as many industries as I'd like. March 2012, we held our first international conference, and we brought trade delegations from China, India and Russia, and we told them about what we do in the UK in terms of industrial sustainability, environmental protection and energy efficiency. And we had our arms bitten off, I think would be the expression. We put a number of what we call adopters up there, people like British Sugar, Unilever, Jaguar Land Rover, Tata Steel, people who have actually implemented all the things that the Chinese, Russians and Indians would like to implement. And then we had a load of presentations, about 12, from companies that provided technology that allowed these adopters, we call them enablers, allowed these adopters to actually achieve what their goals were. And that included companies providing training, support, auditing and the like. We had a government-to-government meeting with these guys, and they were very keen, the Russians and the Indians particularly, and the Chinese, Fortune Oriental were there, and so were the Chinese government and the embassy people, said, yes, please come and help us. So that was our first real understanding that there is a great pull for this. I then went to China in Guangzhou, and they had a workshop that was organised with the UKTI there. I gave a presentation on UK capability. Well received. There was about 100 Chinese companies in there represented, and they were all piling in to know how we could help them. So that was it. We're going on to the next stage. We're doing this briefing event here, and we're producing a UK capability brochure. Now, I mentioned that it's important that the UK presents a holistic solution for the Chinese, and this is all about giving the Chinese like a one-stop shop almost, right, of UK capability. We were told, the embassy, what they really like is that the Chinese companies would like to be able to say, you, Mr. Contractor, can you please just do it for me? And just solve the whole problem. The trouble is in the UK is that it covers many, many different sectors and many different technologies, and it's bringing that all together. And we thought the best way to do that was a UK capability brochure. So if you're not in the brochure, get in the brochure. We are restricting for those people who actually provide services and equipment. In there, it's not an area where we're putting resellers or representatives, but of course you can be named as part of that offering if that's what your client wants. And finally, at the end of March, we're doing a mission to China, which is our first clean energy efficient mission to China, which I'm going to encourage you all to come along. So, what's on our capability brochure? Well, that's the contents, right? We're covering academic, we're covering trade associations, we're covering company profiles, and each company will get its own profile, its heading, its contact details, and it's a standard form to fill in there. We're going to do some sector-specific stuff, as well as the standard factory. Now I'll explain what I mean by that on the next slide, but we're looking at construction materials, steel and iron, chemicals and food and drink as being sector-specific sort of capabilities. Now the thing about this is it's free of charge promotion. You go in this brochure, you don't pay anything, it's all done nicely in UKTI styling and government backing and the likes, and it's going to be completely translated into Chinese, right? So this is a freebie for you guys, and I can't understand why anybody just wouldn't want to be in it. We've done ones for low carbon vehicles, we've done one for buildings and all sorts of things, and this is one for clean energy efficient production. Now, standard factory and sector specific. The problem I said is that we have this broad capability, and CEEP, clean energy efficient production, is all about within the walls of the factory or just around the factory. So what I did is I sort of broke down what I thought was sort of like the main technology areas which you want to offer, the Chinese as a package. Analysis and measurement, we've already talked about the audit side. The actual building itself, the factory itself, its construction and its shape. The heating and cooling. HVAC is a big thing. Uses a lot of energy. There's some great companies that do some energy efficient solutions in here, in ventilation, circulation, door shuttering, all that sort of thing. Microgen, which is energy, so it's your PV on your roof, it's your factory wind turbine, it's your heat pump, it's your clean coal, it's your heat recovery systems, it's your lighting, low energy lighting, but also it's about electricity power management. And this is a big area, about load matching, about making sure that your machines are operating and switched off when they're on peak loads and all the other bits and pieces. A lot of UK capability in that. Guys sitting over on the table there. Electrical power purchasing, which is another side of it. Water, big thing on water, treatment, desalination, sewage, rainwater capture, water leakage, slurry, you can all read it. Waste management, everything from chemicals, hazardous materials, packaging, emissions, your air filtration, your scrubbers, your gas recovery systems. This big thing about people that I mentioned. And then you've got some standard processes which sort of fit in your factory environment, such as refrigeration, motors and drives. Motors and drives, big energy user. Pumps, fluid movements, pumps, big consumer of electricity in manufacturing environments, cleaning and hydraulic systems, compressed air. Some many funny stories about compressed air and leakage and all sorts of things that you can tell you about. Drying and evaporation. So this is what I call my standard factory. And most of these things would apply in different degrees to any factory you go into. Yep. And that's what I call my standard factory offering. But then also on top of that, there's sector-specific stuff. For example, if you're in the cement industry, you're going to have to dry cement. That's a very specific activity. If in your food industry, you might be processing milk or you might be brewing beer. That can be very specific type processes. So that goes on top of your standard factory. So this brochure is all about, here's the standard factory and here's the sector-specific capabilities, which are process-driven rather than the factory itself. Right, so that's the brochure. You should all sign up for that straight away. There's the place, the people you ring and the email you address to get in the brochure. We're also doing this mission. Now this is our first foray into the market, and we put a lot of effort into this to make sure we get all the right contacts. And that's our programme. We're going into Guangzhou. We're doing this thing called the Low Carbon Energy Efficient Business Conference. I'll tell you a little bit more detail about that. At each of these locations, Wuhan and Chongqing. So we're going to 3 centres. Right? The actual conference itself, we're doing in collaboration with the climate change people in China and the Carbon Trust. So they're doing a bit on climate change, which covers it, and we've got a section out of that. Now, the way this is going to work is that each of the companies on the mission will have the opportunity to present their technologies to the companies that have been there. We're inviting to the audience people off our 10,000 company list, and we're working with the local government to make sure the right people come to meet you. They're waiting for us to tell you who's on the mission so they can do some matchmaking to make sure the right people are there to meet you. And then what we do is we do the presentations, we have some presentations from them, a bit of overview stuff, and then we have B2B meetings, single meetings where we book you with meetings with companies that are interested in buying your products and talking to you about your products. Okay? And that happens in 3 centres. So if you go on this mission, you will have direct access not only to the government officials and decision makers, but to these companies on this list and companies that want to save energy. Yeah? So you'll be talking to your customers. And our objective at the end of the day is to get you guys contracts, to get your sales in the market. In the long term, you might take a longer term view on China and think about how you establish stuff in the market, and Vince will talk about that next in a lot more detail. But our idea is to take you out there and get your contracts and get you exporting. If you want to come on the mission and you've got the flyer, that's the address. It's all on the flyer. I will be leading the mission, so I'll buy you a beer if you come along. But please contact them, and also if you want to get on the brochure, right, Abby, same contact addresses, or just speak to Abby back there and she'll help you on it. So in summary, China seems to be given environmental energy saving targets that they have to meet, not just as provinces, not just as state, not just as companies, but as individuals in these organisations. Very big driver. Chinese have an urgent need for CEEP technology and services. They need our help. They're asking us to come in and support them with the new technologies that they have to get into. Read this. It's all in there. They have money to purchase equipment and services. So not only have you got a customer with pull, you've got a customer with a wallet, which is probably the 2 fundamental things you need to do business. The market opportunity is huge, and UK suppliers can capture sales now. Right? You've seen the size of the market. If we go into the market now en masse as UK companies with our CEEP banner, and we'll support you doing that, then there is huge opportunity for you to sell technology in that market. And the UK has great capability in technology in the market, and the Chinese recognise this and are encouraging our participation. Thanks, everybody.